House Republicans elected Louisiana Representative Mike Johnson to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. The deeply conservative congressman hails from a state found by a federal judge to be in violation of the Voting Rights Act. Although the Supreme Court last week decided not to force a redrawing of Louisiana's electoral maps to allow for another black majority district. We're joined by the state's one black Democratic congressman, Representative Troy Carter. Thank you for being on the show tonight, Congressman.
Thank you.
Let's go right to it, Congressman Carter. Let's start with your colleague from the Bayou State, Mike Johnson, who acceded to Speaker of the House this week. What can you tell us about who he is and what we can expect from his speakership as a fellow member of the Louisiana congressional delegation?
Rev, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I've known Congressman Johnson for some time. We both are products of the Louisiana legislature. We could not be further apart ideologically. As you've heard reported many times, that he's affable, he's a nice guy, he's very, very, very far right, and someone that has views that give me and many other Democrats pause. But we're going to have to test this. We're going to have to spend time with him to have him understand. And my intent is to use our relationship to bring him more into focus of the world and not just the position when you were a member of Congress. As a member of Congress, you can have your very strong views in a small congressional district. But now when you ascend to the role of Speaker of the People's House, your responsibility is now to represent not just your small corner of the world, but to represent the entire country. And that means coming to the table and molding some of those very, very far right views into views that are more accepted across the board. So I'm hopeful that the views that we now are miles and miles apart on, that through time and commitment, that he will recognize that he has to pivot more to the center and deal with the issues that face our country, not just issues that face Republicans.
I guess that's what I'm asking you. From your knowing him and having dealt with him, even though you have very different views, does he have the capacity, do you think, in terms of temperament and his own abilities to grow like that? I mean, we mentioned the problems of gerrymandering in your state, and Speaker Johnson also played a significant role in the efforts to overturn the 2020 election, including crafting electoral college objections and trafficking in conspiracy theories about voting machines linked to Hugo Chavez, they were saying. Obviously, Johnson is not going to be putting forward voting rights, proposals on voting rights, and you are and I are likely to support that. But are you concerned about what trouble he could cause in the upcoming 2024 elections?
I am absolutely concerned, and everyone should be. If a record is any indication of how a person sees life and how they view policy, this record is not a good one. It's a bad one. From election denying to anti-LGBTQ rights to a woman's right to choose, and on and on and on. We know that the speaker's views as they are today are absolutely problematic. We're going to have to reach across the aisle and have him reach back to demonstrate that we're not going to just roll over and let these views stick, that we're not going to just allow the status quo of how you've always done it, because that's what you've done, be accepted. We're going to continue to work with our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and our leadership team to make sure that we are ever present, that we're at the table, that we're demanding that we have meaningful discussions. I believe in my heart of hearts that he has the capacity. The question becomes, how much strength will he have to pull away from the zealots, to pull away from the Jim Jordans, to pull away from the Donald Trumps? That time will have to tell. But one thing's for certain, we are going to be there, and we're going to keep our projects, our concerns, our policies on the forefront to make sure that the speaker doesn't get a pass, that you must pivot to the center. We must talk about voting rights. I understand what you've done in the past, but the past is the past. And if you're going to be a Speaker of the House, not a Speaker of the Republican House, not a Speaker of the Freedom Caucus House, but a Speaker of the People's House, you're going to have to come to the center. And I intend to play a pivotal role in bringing him there.
Now let's turn to the possible aid to Israel. House Republicans are holding a conference call tonight to discuss the issue. Speaker Johnson is pushing for a standalone bill for Israeli aid, which he supports, but not including aid for Ukraine, which the White House has requested. What's your reaction to this?
I think it's a critical mistake to bifurcate or divide the funding sources. It wasn't very long ago that Republicans, Democrats, and everyone in between met on the steps of the Capitol and pledged our full support for Ukraine. We stood in unison in the most bipartisan way. And now there seems to be a shift from the willingness to provide these resources at a time that they're so critically important. We know that the Ukraine battle that's going on, which is Putin's war, is a dangerous one. It's dangerous for our democracy. It's dangerous for the world's democracy. And we have to continue to push back. That means the funding that we've given, we have to continue to provide the funding. And we should not play games with the issues of fighting against the horrors of Putin and fighting for our democracy, just like we have to fight to make sure that we're providing resources to Israel and to make sure that we have resources for humanitarian aid for the people of Palestine. There are innocent people that are dying on both sides of this equation. We must use every resource we have to stop Hamas, to support our partners in Israel, and to support the stopping of the horrible, horrible loss of life that we see happening in the Middle East.
Innocent lives in Israel, innocent lives in Palestine, and there are hostages there, many of whom we still have not identified. Let me go to this issue with you, Congressman. On Wednesday, the U.S. saw the deadliest mass shooting this year in Lewiston, Maine. 18 people were killed and 13 people were wounded. President Biden once again called on Congress to ban assault-style weapons. Do you see any signs of a breakthrough on this issue? After all we did see Maine's Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, for example. We saw that. He changed his stance this week, coming out for a ban after the tragedy. Do you see any more changes here? Because we've seen mass shootings after mass shootings, I think over 550 mass shootings this year, and nothing has changed on the right about this. Have you seen any movement since this disastrous occasion in Maine?
Reverend, the question begs to be answered. How many lives have to be lost? How many shootings do we have to have? How close does it have to come to your home? We saw Jared Golden, a member of Congress who was before now against banning assault rifles. Now he sees the value in it because it's come so close to home. How many other innocent lives do we have to lose before the right joins us in the middle to say, let's do something about this? I'm always optimistic because I believe that as long as we're at the table, we can find solutions. But I will tell you, there are members of the Republican conference who so far have been immovable in an area that makes no sense. We are not talking about taking away your constitutional rights. We're not talking about taking away the ability for someone to go hunting. We're talking about reasonable gun measures that will save lives, that will save synagogues and churches, shopping malls and schools, concert halls, people just enjoying their everyday life who are now subject to these deranged shooters who are out there with AR-15s and weapons of mass destruction. The Democratic Party will not move from this position. We will continue to push forward. We'll continue to bring as many as we can, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. I intend to work very closely with members of the other side of the aisle to continue to demonstrate that this is not a partisan issue. This is not a Democratic or Republican issue. These are American lives, and we're watching them die on the streets of America every single day. And the time to change and to fix it is now. We've got to make sure that people are no longer hiding behind the Constitution. We will stand by and protect the Constitution. We're not talking about taking away or denying your Second Amendment rights. We're talking about reasonable, I underscore, reasonable gun control, banning assault rifles that have no purpose on the streets. There's no purpose for them hunting. There's no purpose for them in your homes.
I might add, when they talk about standing by the Constitution, there's many of them that are distorting what the Constitution really says. But I have to leave it there. Representative Troy Carter of Louisiana, thank you for your insight.